I generally like to start, and we start our retreats with this. So we have a theme every day, and our theme for the first day is one life, one chance.
Excellent.
That's a mantra I picked up from some very good friends of mine, Luke and Elise Richmond. And essentially that kind of just in a simple nutshell, it tells me that we only get one crack at this. Without saying any more, but death is inevitable and it's going to happen. It's going to come. It's a matter of, are you willing to do what you want to do in that period, or are you going to have regrets at the end? So I think the first thing is know what you want, know where you're headed, know what your vision is. Some of the things I like to go down other rabbit holes with clients is, find out what works for you and what you like doing and do more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what doesn't work for you and what you don't like doing and find ways how to do less of it. Find out what makes you happy and what you really want to do. Like, are you doing things because you want to do them, or are you doing them because society says, or because your mother wants you to, or because your cousin wants you to, or because your husband wants you to? Are you doing things for the right reasons? I think selfish is a word that's seen in a negative connotation. For me, I think being selfish can be a very positive thing, as long as it's not negatively impacting others. Now, if I go in that a little bit further, I think if you invest in yourself and you ensure that you are the best version of yourself, then you provide stability for others. And, a lot of us, we want to help other people, but we can't help others unless we are stable ourselves.
All right, welcome everybody back to The Peaks Life. A little bite-sized chunks of wellness wisdom, but special guest today. So Mike Warren, Lynn Fernie joining you again. And today we have a very special guest, Barton McGuckin. And Barton, we've crossed paths with in our trips to Bali, and he's got some really good insights. And first of all, welcome to the podcast, Barton.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Great to
Pleasure,
be here.
mate. Pleasure. Now, just for the listeners, there's a little bit of information in the bio around yourself, but give us a bit of an overview, Barton. You've obviously had quite an interesting career, so maybe take a couple of minutes and just walk us through the Barton story. What brought you to this point, and we'll dig in with some questions as we go through.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I started my journey back in 2004 as a personal trainer, back in a commercial gym in Australia. I guess that was before the fitness industry was what it is now. People were kind of asking, what is a personal trainer? Is that a lifelong kind of career? And it was a bit of an unknown back then. So I kind of jumped in to it back then. I went through the progressions of being a PT, of being a fitness director and working with a team of trainers, to owning a group training business. And I guess the next step was getting involved in gym ownership. So I got involved in owning 3 24-hour gyms with some business partners in Australia. And then I guess I got to the point where business became a bit less of a priority, and I was getting stressed out. I was getting tired. I was impacting my relationships. All these things are great, but I think we get too busy sometimes. And I had to get to the point where it was, do I make a decision based on money, or do I make a decision based on lifestyle? And essentially it came down to my now wife and I nearly separating at the time. And we decided, okay, let's do what we want to do, not necessarily what society says we should do. We decided to sell up the businesses. We decided to downsize. We decided to just totally overhaul our life, to be honest with you, and change to the mantra of kind of less is better, less but better. Focus more on people, focus less on possessions, focus more on experiences, focus more on how many passport stamps we can get in our passport.
And what year was this done? When did you decide to make this change?
This would have been 4 years ago now, back in
cool.
2015, 2016.
Okay, great.
So just before that, I'd moved to Melbourne from Brisbane for one of the gyms. I was entrenched myself in work. But as you will probably see, and some of your listeners probably, I started to get those telltale signs of too much stress. What, for use of a better word, is adrenal fatigue, like just tired but wired. Things just weren't working. The body wasn't responding the way it needed to be. And I guess I was lucky that I saw those red flags at the time and made a decision. And it's just something that evolved from there. I think before that, there was kind of a few lessons I learnt I had a serious knee injury. Would be back in 2010 now, where I injured my knee initially, and then I had 7 operations over the first 3 years. And I think that, combined with all the extra workload, just the stress on my body just took its toll. And I realized that, hey, I needed to make a change. So essentially, nowadays I started as a trainer. I say I'm a health and fitness coach now, but to me, it's more about what I can do for people. So I say I help people solve their health and fitness problems. That's very broad, but essentially that's what I do. And the second part of that, I think a lot of people lack accountability or need accountability. So I say I help people do what they say they're going to do. I think a lot of people say they're going to do stuff, but they don't do it. I'm pretty black and white. I'm that guy that'll kick you up the arse if you need it, and make sure you do what you say you're going to do. Because I think we all have the best intentions, but sometimes we don't follow through.
Yeah, I think Barton, some of what you said it rings so true for so many people. It doesn't matter whether you're a busy executive, whether you're an entrepreneur, professional business owner, like you said, from your experience, if you're working super hard and things are going really well and business is expanding, you're driven to do more and more, but the more and more just takes its toll eventually. And, the materialistic world that we live in drives us to get, bigger houses, bigger cars, better cars, more stuff. And eventually, it gets to a point for a lot of people where it's, is this really how I want to live the rest of my life? Because I'm not actually happy. I've got a lot of stuff, but I'm not in a happy place. So it's awesome to hear your story that, you guys gave a lot of that up and you went for the simpler lifestyle, the less materialistic. So you talked about, that health and wellness or, health and fitness coaching that you do now. Just tell us a bit more about how you work with people, the sort of people that you are helping, that you're keeping accountable, and the sort of, the way that you do that.
Yeah, so there's a few different arms to our business. So like remote coaching is in the world we live in now, it's easy. Like we're on a call here now. I can do this with people all over the world. So whether it be Australia or Europe or the UK, and I've got clients in those places. We run some retreats, and then my wife and I also go and live in people's houses and kind of totally overhaul their lifestyle.
Wow.
We become their chef, their trainer, their everything. So there's kind of different scales there, depending on how deep people want to dive in. The other thing is that, I like to go really deep with a select few people. I think there's enough information out there these days where there's enough general programs for the masses that I don't need to put another program out there. Like I want to work with 12 people and go so deep and make massive lifestyle changes. I guess to answer your question there, Lynn, in how do I do that? Like essentially I say to people, like, I'm your corner man. I'm in your top 5. I'm there to instill confidence. I'm there to set systems and structures based around health, nutrition, based around sleep, based around stress, based around lifestyle, based around all these things. But I'm also that guy that's going to kick you in the butt when you're not doing what you say you're going to do. So for me, it's about developing that relationship and being able to go both ways, to be that supportive person, but also to be that hard person that sometimes I think we all need to have that in our lives so that we've got that balance between the two.
Yeah, totally. And what, if there is a typical person that you work with, Barton, what would that person be?
Look, I would say I call people like they're not athletes, they're general pops, people that own their own businesses, people that are executives, people that are mums and dads that have got kids, people that live in the real world, that have got stress, that, they don't have a chef and a nanny and all these kinds of things. Like they've got to do these things themselves. So for me, a big part is coming up with strategies that you can put into your life, because there is no one size fits all. It's about what works for you and what can we put in that's going to be sustainable. So there's 2 things: there's optimal and there's practical. And we've got to find the balance for you as the individual.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's such great advice. Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. So, one size definitely, doesn't fit all. What are some of the challenges that your clients face? Because you talked about accountability, and I think that's so true. People are held accountable, in their careers, but often not accountable in health and wellness. So what are the biggest challenges for these guys that you're working with?
I think nutrition is probably one of the biggest ones, to be honest with you. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One is that we all eat 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, every day. So it's something that we do in high frequency. So it's something that we have to be good at. I think the second thing also is just the society we live in, where we're full of convenience. You know, you can get anything delivered to your door now within an hour just from picking up your phone. So, you know, you don't have to crack your nuts anymore. You don't have to peel your prawns. You don't have to do any of that. Everything is pre-packaged and pre-done. And we live in a convenient society where if we just fall into those traps, if you can see it or you can smell it or it's in your vicinity, you're generally going to eat it. So what I've got to do is come up with strategies for people to make it easier to do the good things and make it harder to do the not desirable things.
Yeah, very cool. I think you're right. You know, when you say that everything's on the end of a phone call, it used to be, we sort of progressed from, you know, supermarkets that were open 24/7, and then that next level of progression to you can literally get anything delivered to your door, you know, within, like you said, an hour, has just taken us another level on that whole sort of, you know, access to food, access to sugar, access to crap 24/7.
Totally. And I think the environment plays, so I was going to say, I think the environment plays a big part, not just with nutrition, but you said, you know, what are some of the other challenges? The other challenges are, I think time management is a big thing for people. Absolutely. I think planning and preparation and actually knowing what you're going to do. I think having a support network that's on the same page as you. So a lot of people, if their environment doesn't match up to what they want to do, it's going to be really, really hard to get long-term success, whether it be the people, whether it be, you know, your office, whether it be your kitchen, whether it be who does the shopping. All these things have to line up to be moving in the same direction. So I think the first thing there is, okay, what is the outcome that you want to achieve? And you need to be able to very clearly define that, but then break it down. I'm all about systems and processes. Break it down so that the goals essentially are the systems and the strategies, not necessarily the outcome. Because the systems and strategies will get you to the end result.
Mate, I was interested in how long, on average, how long would you work with someone from starting them on their journey, whether it's an intensive or a remote? Do you have clients you've worked with through an ongoing basis, or is it a short intervention?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, in an ideal world, I would love to say, hey, I can work with someone for a week or a month and bang, everything's done. You go and do your thing and life is perfect. And look, there's a few people that can do that. But, you know, I think it really comes down to the personality of people. So on retreats, we'll work with people for a week. When we live with people, it might be anywhere from 3 to 7 days. And then with the coaching stuff, like I have a lot of clients that I've had ongoing for many years now, not because they're not getting results, but I think people's goals change, people's lives change, and their education gets better and better, and then they just want to continue to develop. So I think it depends on the person. What I do like to do, though, is break it down into phases so that you always know what phase you're in. It's like, are you in a health phase? Are you in a fat loss phase? Are you in a maintenance phase? Are you in a gain phase? Are you in a holiday phase? Like, what phase are you in? And if you know what phase you're in, then you can put the actual pieces together that match up with that phase. I think too often people say, hey, I want to lose weight, or I'm in a fat loss phase, but their actions don't actually mimic that.
Yeah, good strategy. Yeah. Mate, so how did that lead on to the lessons I've learned? So the next step in one of the areas that we crossed paths was having a look at your book and understanding some of the messages and some of the lessons. How did that whole project come to happen, and what's the plan moving forward?
Yeah, that was really a random chance, to be honest with you. My wife and I we used to go to Thailand and train. We were sitting in a restaurant in Thailand. I was munging away at a nice meal. I dropped some carrot on the ground, and it kind of just, you know, that 10-second rule. You got 10 seconds to get up and eat it, or do you just leave it? You know, what's the table next door going to think? What is my partner going to think if I pick it up and eat it? And it just started a conversation between her and I. And the old saying of you learn something new every day. Like, I said that to her then and there. And then we just kind of set a challenge. Well, if you do learn something new every day, let's post about it. Let's learn some stuff and post about it. So from that moment, which was 211 weeks ago now, every week I've done a post every Sunday on Facebook with 7 things I've learnt that week. And then what I did is I've taken some of the best bits from that and put it into a book so that it's short, it's sharp, it's concise, it's thought-provoking, it's motivating, it's inspiring. It just gives people these little tidbits to be able to refer back to. Like me personally, I actually use it as the screensaver on my phone. So every week I change the screensaver. That way I've got 7 points each week that I can refer back to, and just keeps instilling the same message that I want to get. That message is all about, being in control of your life. It's one life, it's one chance. It's about health, it's about fitness, it's about taking opportunities, it's about understanding that everything is a choice and that you are in control. Like, you're not a victim. You get to choose where you end up.
100%. Love that message. So, in that, you said 211 weeks.
211 weeks now, yeah. Correct.
So in that 211 weeks, have you got a favourite moment? Was there a favourite learning from all of that?
It's actually really interesting. I look back over those weeks, and when I reread them, I'm like astounded at how many gems there are in there. But I also remember where I was in the world. So I can tell you, like, week 52 was the week of my wedding. So that's obviously probably one that resonates with me the most. But I can say, okay, week 36 I was doing this, or week 22 I was here. So for me, there's a real personal affiliation there. I read through one this morning that just said, the definition of luck is where preparation meets opportunity. So that's probably the one that came to my head from my screensaver this week, is that, there is no luck. It's about, and you guys might experience this as well, being able to live in Bali or live the life that you guys live. You probably have some people that say to you, hey, you're so lucky. I really don't believe that. I believe that, the preparation and the opportunity that you've put together have now combined, and where we end up. So I think taking responsibility for that is a really one that resonates with me.
Very cool. And on your journey, Barton, when you've been, going through these learnings and thinking about the fact, that's a great one, I'm going to put that into my post this week. Where do those learnings come from? Are they just learnings in life? Are they people that you've worked with, that you've interviewed, that you've met? How do you come across them?
It's a combination of everything. I'll generally, from conversations that I have with people in everyday life each week, I'll listen to a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of books, a lot of things externally. So essentially I call myself the middleman. I take pieces of wisdom from all over the place and kind of decipher them and then put my favorites out there. So I'm the middleman. I don't claim that they're all mine. Some of them I'll come up with. Some of them I'll sit down with friends and say, all right, we'll be sitting down at dinner, and I'll just say, okay, what did you learn this week? And so I try and get other people to be involved, because ultimately it's not about me. It's not about anything. It's just about sharing knowledge and educating and making everyone better versions of themselves.
And I think what's really cool about it as well is the fact that, you're constantly open to all these new ideas, thoughts, just learnings. So it sort of makes you a bit like a sponge, because you're always looking for that opportunity. So rather than, a lot of people can approach things in a bit of a negative frame of mind, but this gives you that positive, I want to learn, I want to become better, I want to be open to it. So it gives you a completely different outlook on life when you're open in that way. And also then when you're looking at them and reflecting on them, there's that, the self-reflection. It's a phrase that's been said before, it's a quote that's out there already, but what does it mean to me? What's the relevance to my life? So I think that's a very cool way to look at it.
If I add to that, like I know one of the points, I couldn't tell you what week it is, but when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I know it's quite ironic, but I'm a massive believer in that. You can have two people look at the same thing and get a very different outcome. So I think a lot of it is not necessarily what happens in life, it's how we deal with it, it's what we do about it. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said there.
So yeah, so true. I think mindset is completely underrated. And you have, as you said earlier, you got that power to change your destiny. You got the power to change your life. And it's just about, you know, believing in yourself and trusting the process.
So, Bun, we got a lot of listeners who tune into this podcast or the YouTube who are just embarking on their wellness journey, whether it is nutrition, whether it's exercise, breathing, sleep, in all those areas. A lot of those people who, as you described at the very start of the podcast, were probably in a similar position to yourself, or are up to their ears in goals and achievements and trying to do their business side, but then have made the change and said, right, it's now time to focus on myself. It's now time to bring the wellness up. So what are some of your words of advice? You've got, obviously, you've got the fitness background, the nutrition background, the coaching background, plus 4 years of listening to lessons learned. If you had someone in front of you now who said, I want to start a wellness journey, what would be some of the things and the advice you'd give them?
So what I generally like to start, and we start our retreats with this. So we have a theme every day. And our theme for the first day is one life, one chance.
Excellent.
That's a mantra I picked up from some very good friends of mine, Luke and Elise Richmond. And essentially that kind of just in a simple nutshell, it tells me that we only get one crack at this. You know, without saying any more, but death is inevitable and it's going to happen. It's going to come. It's a matter of, are you willing to do what you want to do in that period, or are you going to have regrets at the end? So I think the first thing is know what you want, know where you're headed, know what your vision is. Some of the things I like to go down other rabbit holes with clients is, you know, find out what works for you and what you like doing and do more of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, find out what doesn't work for you and what you don't like doing and find ways how to do less of it. You know, find out what makes you happy and what you really want to do. Like, are you doing things because you want to do them, or are you doing them because society says, or because your mother wants you to, or because your cousin wants you to, or because your husband wants you to? You know, like, are you doing things for the right reasons? I think selfish is a word that's seen in a negative connotation. For me, I think being selfish can be a very positive thing, as long as it's not negatively impacting others. Now, if I go in that a little bit further, like, I think if you invest in yourself and you ensure that you are the best version of yourself, then you provide stability for others. And, you know, a lot of us, we want to help other people, but we can't help others unless we are stable ourselves. And there's a saying I heard a while back, you know, the bigger the base, the higher the peak. So if you look at a pyramid, I like to use that analogy. Like, the bigger and more stable that base is, the higher you can go and the better you can become. So I think if you can build your base with, you know, with structure, with stability, whether that's from sleep, from nutrition, from exercise, you know, those are always the big rocks. Stress management, all those things, it's always going to come back to that. It's just a matter of how does that fit into your lifestyle. And then, I know you spoke to Kirsten a few weeks back, and one of her things, which is one of my things as well, and I wanted to bring it up, was, you know, just be 1% better tomorrow. Be 1% better every day. You don't have to make really big, great steps. You know, Usain Bolt didn't become the fastest athlete overnight. It's years and years. Michael Jordan wasn't the best basketball player overnight. It's just that consistency over time that leads to results.
Yeah.
So, Barton, I think they're you know, invaluable tips, and each one, you know, we could spend an hour talking about each one of those. And if people just took a fraction of that, you know, and thought about what it meant to them and implemented it in their own lives, they'd find their lives would be a lot richer. I guess just one final question around you is, you know, you have a fairly busy life now from the sound of it. So you went from a busy, stressful life, you reinvented yourselves, you've now got established, you've got your business up and running with different arms to it. How do you make sure that you stay in that happy place? You know, what do you personally do to stay grounded and stay well and make sure the stress doesn't get to you?
Well, first of all, in regard to the word busy, like, I don't like to use the word busy, and there's nothing on you using that. Like, I think busy is a choice. So for me, it's about, I live a productive life, not a busy life. And what do I do? It's about for me, it's about what are the non-negotiables that I need to do to get what I want out of my life. So I kind of have a mantra. I want to do the things I want to do when I want to do them with the people that I choose to do them with. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I make my decisions. Is it what I want to do? Does it fit in with my time frames? And is it with the people I want to? I think a skill that I've acquired over that time is the ability to say no. And I think that's a very valuable skill, but also a very hard skill for people to take on board. You know, if I get more specific into your question, you know, the big rocks for me are their movement, you know, whether it be structured movement in the gym or incidental exercise. Like, that's a non-negotiable for me, and I think it should be for everyone. You know, it's nutrition. For me, that's a non-negotiable. It's, okay, what are the things I need to do? I need to eat a lot of vegetables. I need to eat some protein. I need to drink some water. So back to what I said before, find what you like and do more of it. Okay, what are the vegetables I like? What are the proteins I like? And then follow that. Don't look at why it won't work. Like, find why it will work. You know, sleep's a big one for me. I know you guys are big into that as well. You know, a pre-bed routine. Like, one of the things I recommend to a lot of clients is not necessarily to have a morning alarm, but it's to have an evening alarm. So set your alarm, you know, 30, 45, 60 minutes before bed, and then have a routine that gets you to sleep. Because that's one of the biggest things I find with clients these days. If we go back to earlier when you said, you know, one of the biggest challenges is that people just aren't sleeping. Like, it's the easiest thing we all have access to it, but we don't do it.
Right. Absolutely.
If I look at, probably two other big rocks are stress. And stress is inevitable. Like, we need stress to grow. As an organism, if we had no stress, we would die. So we need stress, because stress provides stimulus. But what we don't need is chronic stress. You know, exercise is stress, which is great. But if you're already stressed from life, from work, from kids, from financial, from watching too much Netflix, from social media, and then you want to go and smack out a hard interval training session, all you're doing is adding stress to a stressed body. So I think getting people to understand that, I refer to it as a stress budget. So if you had a $100 budget to spend on stress every day, where are you currently spending it? And are you going over budget? And if you are going over budget, how do you pull that budget back? Because if you go over budget on your credit card, all of a sudden you've got a big interest bill and something happens. You know, the bank manager comes knocking on your door. And I think it's the same with our bodies. When we constantly go over budget, all of a sudden we wake up and we're like, oh my God, I'm wrecked. I can't move. I'm tired. I'm lethargic. I'm putting on weight. I've got these big bags under my eyes. So I think getting on top of that to start with is really important. And then, like I said before, accountability is really big to me. And it's the same for me. I've got to make myself accountable. I've got to keep my clients accountable, because we all operate best when we're accountable to someone else.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I think the way of looking at stress, you know, as a budget is a really good one, because it's like with your credit card. A lot of people can put the limit up, and then eventually at some point somebody says, there's no more credit, you're out, now you've got a damn big bill to pay. And that's fine with a credit card, but when it comes to your body and your health, the person who eventually says, you know, I'm shutting you down, it's the central nervous system. You know, your autonomic nervous system will step in and say, enough is now enough, and you can't operate any longer. And that means for some people literally not being able to get out of bed, not being able to move, not being able to do the basic tasks. I don't think people realize how bad that can actually be. You know, and every time they push back that decision, you know, or that conscious choice to do something about their wellness, they don't realize that that's hanging over them, and you know, that day could come very soon. So yeah, I think it's a really nice way to look at it, having the daily stress budget.
So Barton, what's next for you, mate? You're obviously on this journey. You're continuing to put out the lessons every week. Is that an ongoing thing, or is there an end to that, or is that just you for the rest of your life?
That is an ongoing thing. It didn't start as an ongoing thing. It started as a first year. Something about me and my personality is I love challenges. So, okay, once I get on a streak, I don't want to break a streak. So I'm 211 weeks into a streak. Now I don't want to break it.
Yes.
I guess it's one of those things where people ask me, you know, are you just regurgitating the same stuff? And I look back and there's a lot of common themes there, but I think for me, it also gives me a purpose. It gives me something to be able to, that I know I have to do. So I'm accountable to it every Sunday. I have to do it. So in regard to what's next, you know, I've set a challenge this year, my wife and I, that we're going to do 52 one-week challenges. So every week for the year, we'll set aside a different challenge. So you can see a common theme in my personality coming out here. I set a New Year's resolution at the end of, on December 31st, 2004, to not eat a hot chip. And I'm now 15 years into that streak. So I'll continue with that streak. I'm going to run 52 one-week challenges this year. We're going to run some retreats. We're going to keep coaching. We're going to go live with people. But ultimately, you know, for me, it's about less but better. Like that's the mantra I want to keep going down. And I think it's also really important just to be grateful. Like it's something that we haven't touched on yet, but something that I've learned. And that's why I really like traveling. And I like, you know, living here in Indonesia at the moment, is that I love seeing people who've got nothing who smile more and they're happier. And it's just kind of, it's a paradox. It's like, what have we got wrong in the Western world, where we've got so many things, like you said before, Lynn, we've got so many possessions, we've got bigger houses, we've got bigger cars, we've got bigger mortgages, but we're less happy. So I think it's finding that middle ground of how do we have enough, but not too much. How do we still live that life that we want to live?
Yeah. 100%.
I think a lot of people, unfortunately, still haven't prioritised happiness and still haven't defined what happiness is. They're still stuck on the happiness is the success, the business, the tangibles, and haven't quite got to the headspace of happiness is actually being happy, being well, being surrounded by loved ones, and understanding what changes do I need to make to be happy rather than be successful. And when the headspace changes, everything drops into line, and their whole priorities change. But it's still a journey for a lot of people, isn't it?
Sure is.
Yeah. Mate, it's been awesome chatting to you. We're going to put some of the links to your stuff in the bio, so anybody who's interested in the lessons learned piece can follow your journey and follow the weekly lessons. And obviously interested in your retreats or any of your coaching, that's all there for them as well. So we're going to wish you well on your journey. We're excited to follow you on a weekly basis and see your weekly challenges. Thank you for joining us on the Peace Life. It's been awesome chatting.
Sure has. And, you know, we'll be looking out for those weekly challenges.
You guys, if I can just leave one thing, PURA VIDA, life is good.
Life is good. Awesome. Thanks, Barton.
Bye. Cheers, mate.